This is super important. If you're here right now and we're live, this is the pre-show. If you're catching this in the replay, skip ahead to 5 minutes. That's when tonight's topic is going to start. This is the time when we get fired up for the live stream. What I want to talk about tonight, we have a really amazing topic. But first, I want to see who the first person in the live chat is going to be. So if you're here, say hello. Comment in the chat. Let's see. Let's see who the first person in the live chat is going to be tonight. What's the deal? Got some background devices going on here. Who is going to be the first person in the live chat tonight? We are going to talk about our relationships with food. We're going to need everybody's participation in the live chat. So if you're here, your family, that's number one. Just like the Olive Garden says, tonight we have a beverage and it is just a iced coffee. I mean, honestly, I feel like this barely even constitutes iced coffee. It is 2 shots of espresso, a couple of teaspoons of chocolate syrup, and some almond milk with some ice. So it's like an iced latte, mocha, kappa thing. I don't know. But that is to get me wired for the stream. We're getting fired up. I went to this People of Video conference last week, and there were sessions about live streaming and making content and stuff, and I'm really fired up for everything I got going on the channel here. It's actually amazing. I checked my analytics just before the stream, and let's see here. If you are in the chat, say hello now. It looks like something might be messed up on my end. Maybe not. Maybe I'm just crazy. But yeah, I checked my stats, and for some reason I got like a instant surge of subscribers about an hour before the stream. So I'm pretty fired up about that too. So if you're here, pop in. All right, Mr. Van Dominic is first. He will be streaming tomorrow night on Twitch. Follow him on social media, and you can go with Van Dominic through a creative process. I will probably watch if I can figure out how to get Twitch on my whole thing here, but don't miss that. Let's see. Who else we got? Come on, guys. We got to get fired up. This is going to be... I'm going to talk about some stuff I've never talked about before. So, cheersies. Now, I know I usually... this is a time I call for the early crew, and I usually on purpose tell people this starts at 7:30. And the number one reason is because for some reason there's a lag between when the stream actually starts and when people can actually get into the stream on their YouTube apps, and when I hit my button. So I want to make sure that the people who really want to know everything are here for the entire thing. But also I want to create a little special space in the first 5 minutes for everybody so we can all get fired up together and be ready for this whole thing. And seeing that Van Dominic is in the live chat today, we're going back through some historical stuff, which I'm sure he's going to tell me I got completely wrong. But we're gonna have a lot of fun. It's like when you watch Johnny Carson and those types of late night shows. Like, hey, we got a great show for you tonight. So that's what we're looking at here. Just another minute until we get started. And you guys who are here, we're already wound up. We're already started. We are ready to go. We're ready to tackle this. I am definitely ready for this live stream tonight because this has been a crazy week and I need something, a little bit of an escape. And this is going to help me, whether there's one person here, whether it's, 550, which I think 550 is actually our goal for the night. So tell a friend to tell a friend and hit like if you haven't on the video. Where are we at with likes? So we got more likes than people watching, which I think is good. Probably means somebody left, but let's get rid of this banner. If you haven't subscribed, do that. Get back to my comments here. Get my throat cleared, and we are going to get fired up in less than 10 seconds, guys. Get ready. We're talking about some crazy stuff. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Papandrea derryx live. Every Thursday we go live. We do this. Tonight I want to talk about food identities. What goes into our food identity, and what exactly am I talking about when I say food identity? It's kind of a vague term. I think it's something that I might have even come up with myself in trying to put together this stream. Trying to confuse everybody is what I'm trying to do here. So, if you've been following here for a while, I think we've started our growth on the channel within the last 2 years, and I think it's important for me. I've never actually fleshed out a lot of the ideas I'm going to talk about tonight, and whether you came from watching my kale video, my Starbucks double shot on ice, which I'm actually drinking that tonight, or any other video. If for the most part I could see the what videos are popular, and I know what's bringing people in, and I know those are more of the popular videos are about food on my channel, and that's kind of what we've evolved into here. So I want to take a little bit of a laid back approach and talk a little bit about my relationship with food, and kind of where I come from in terms of the whole food thing. Why are you watching this weird guy on the internet cook things like kale or peas or Italian specialties and stuff like that? So we're going to get into that, and we're going to go back through history. And like I said, my brother was in the live stream just a minute ago. So if you are into having fun, this is going to be your night, because we are going back to the beginning. So for me, it's important. I don't consider myself a foodie, and it's kind of a word I dislike. And part of the reason why I dislike it is because I feel like there's a little bit of amateurism to the term. And I don't think it's a bad thing that people have interest in food, and that they kind of, you know, from a perspective of, not having any industry experience, enjoy food. I think that's amazing. I think, it's a method of expression, right? But I don't like the word foodie because of what the internet culture has turned it into. I feel like it kind of is synonymous with kind of snobbery and cultures like Yelp and things like that, where people kind of conflate having an online presence with knowing about food. The one thing I want you guys to know here is that regardless of your background and regardless of what you like, I am not going to judge you. Okay. That's the number one thing. I'm not here to say, oh, what I like is great and what you like sucks, because I don't think that that's fair. I think that that sells short uh, everything that makes us unique as people. So, with that said, I want to go into a little bit about what makes me tick when it comes to food. Because, like I said, I'm just some random dude on the internet throwing up recipes that you guys seem to be loving. I got subscribers, new subscribers coming in every day. And that's the purpose here, is I want to talk about where I came from and why this fat dude is talking about food. So, in order to do that, I have to tell you a little bit about my family. I'm sure they're gonna love this, but so my parents are Italian immigrants, or were. They came here in the 1960s. I think my mom came in 1962. My dad came in either 65 or 67. I'm sure even if you talk to him, the date changes. And that's a joke, Dad. But they came here from Italy, and it was a little bit different. My dad didn't really he went to school, but it wasn't. We came from Brooklyn, and that's where that whole thing happened. But my dad kind of got started in Italian deli business in Brooklyn. There's a pretty big culture around that from our side of Brooklyn and Bensonhurst. And my dad, being an Italian immigrant, he and his brothers, that whole generation of people really did a lot to overcome, being an Italian immigrant and become business owners and things like that. And it goes back to my grandparents. My grandparents came here with my parents, and um, my parents' generation were kind of the first ones. So the grandparents brought them here, and then our parents and uncles really built that kind of security, almost, I would say. So being with that said, I was born in Brooklyn and I grew up in Brooklyn. When I say grew up, I think I was 7 years old when we moved upstate. And we'll walk through this story. As a child, every kid kind of makes a relationship with food, and it really all comes down to what culture you're kind of indoctrinated into. It's hard for me to describe the foods that I was brought up with, but I'll try my best. My mom is a very good cook, and she really worked hard to nail down the things that I loved. Things like grilled cheeses. I remember, being in elementary school and getting home, and she would make me this grilled cheese sandwich called mozzarella and carrozza, which is like almost like a mix between a Monte Cristo and a grilled cheese. It has mozzarella inside and egg on the outside, kind of like two slices of French toast with mozzarella melted in the middle. It's an amazing sandwich, and that's one thing that my mom used to make me. Nutella on bread was another thing, and these all were enabled by the fact that my dad had access to a lot of these ingredients, owning a deli in on 13th Avenue in Brooklyn, and that was pretty cool. I can tell you that I would say that my childhood was pretty normal, so to speak, as far as foods we had access to. I remember eating things like Nilla wafers and Oreo cookies and stuff. And one of the stories that I tell is that when I was in elementary school, we used to live right around the corner from my elementary school. PS 128 was the school, and we lived on 85th Street. And one time in first grade, it might have been kindergarten, but I'm pretty sure first grade, I I am I had a lunchbox and I didn't want to be in school anymore. For a dime, they would sell you 5 Nilla wafers. So what I did was I took the Nilla wafers and crushed them up in my lunchbox, and then went to the water fountain and wet them enough so that it looked like I had regurgitated into the lunchbox. And they called my mom to pick me up. I'm sure they saw right through it, but it was kind of a funny story. But that's to say that during that time, the stuff that I ate was, I would say, like normal American foods. Growing up in that time, a lot of the food was influenced by what my dad would bring from his deli. That was kind of the major thing. My dad, obviously, buying stuff wholesale is going to be cheaper than to provide for your family than to do that. So I do remember a lot of stuff coming from the store. We used to eat a lot of things like pasta. My mom would make me cavadelli with mozzarella. She used to make really amazing tomato sauce. She still does. Um, haven't had my mom's sauce in a while, but she did make me gavadelli recently, as in within the last couple of years, once or twice. And they used to take me to McDonald's and Burger King. I think we used to live a block away from a Burger King, and also McDonald's was a few blocks the other way. That was walking more toward my uncle Dino and Aunt Rosalie's house. And I remember, when I was a kid, getting McDonald's chicken nuggets, and I've even been trying to, show Noah that you got to dunk it in the sweet and sour sauce. That was always my favorite thing. I don't know what they put in that sweet and sour sauce, but it's incredible. And just things like cold cuts. I don't know that my mom made a lot of chicken parm back then. I don't really remember a lot of those foods, but a lot of the holiday baking that my mom does now really started when we lived in Brooklyn. And I know that my mom has been doing it every year, and you know it really takes me back. We moved upstate in the later 80s, and when I say upstate, we moved to Orange County, Middletown, and that's when things started getting, I would say, a little bit more easier to describe. If you've watched on television shows like The Sopranos, that was more or less what our food culture was in the house. So, I don't know that we actually had baked ziti or things like that, but it was, very heavy, pasta for a lot of nights. My dad would have steak some nights and things like that. But the one thing that my mom, it was kind of non-negotiable, is that I always had to have chicken cutlets, and I don't know how she had the patience to do this, but every night she would make me chicken cutlets from scratch. We would have 4C breadcrumbs, and it's one of those things. Like I remember it so vividly that I the can of breadcrumbs bring me back to that time. And as we lived upstate, I got to go to school, elementary school, and I remember uh, it was a little bit different because the kids there didn't really know a lot of the foods that were common when we lived in Brooklyn. So things like, my mom sent me to school one time with a loaf of Italian bread, like a piece of a loaf of Italian bread with some salami. I remember it being like a Genoa salami, and I remember a couple of kids at the table uh, kind of made fun of me a little bit for having something that didn't look like a regular sandwich. And as a young kid, I think I was in like third or fourth grade at that time, you get a little bit traumatized by the fact that, like, oh, you're the weird kid just because of what you're eating. It wasn't anything that really phased me, honestly, but I do remember that feeling of, these kids are really annoying me, and I really wish that I had a normal peanut butter and jelly like those kids. But that wasn't anything that lasted long. The one thing that was kind of cool at the time, I don't know if you guys remember these things called kudos bars. You don't see them anymore. I think um they've been completely replaced by things like granola bars with chocolate chips in it. And yes, General Salami. But I remember my mom would pack in my lunchbox things like kudos bars and things like that. And it was around kind of the early 90s when my dad started actually bringing me into his deli that he had opened in Orange County. It was called Famous Delilicious Italian Pork Store. He was partners with my uncle John, and it's one of those things where I kind of sacrificed a little bit of my childhood and adolescence to helping him out in the store. But it's one of those things that that's my bonding with my dad is, I worked with him for, most of the 90s. I helped out when I was in graduate school and college, and we'll get to that part of the story in a minute here. But working in the store is kind of when I remember experimenting with a lot of stuff. And it was kind of cool because I got to learn how to make everything behind the steam table. And, my dad would do the mozzarella in the morning. And even when we were in Brooklyn, he would always sneak me a bocconcini, small mozzarella, put it in the salt water and give it to me while he's making it. And these are all great memories, but they're kind of the things that mold your food identity. So working in the store, I kind of got into that whole mindset of, okay, I know how to cook, right? And the stuff that I'm eating here is good stuff, right? Because it's stuff that I was brought up with from when I was a really, really young child. Things like chicken parm, tomato sauce, pasta, all that type of Italian immigrant, New York, New Jersey, Italian immigrant food, was stuff that, it was easy to make. I don't know what's going on here. Okay, there we go. Easy to make, easy to eat. And I started to consume a lot of the journalism on television surrounding food. And now we're talking more like the mid 90s. That's when Food Network became kind of a thing. And I used to love that type of documentarian type television. I would watch any type of instructional stuff. Uh, and it was really when they launched Food Network, I guess even before Food Network, when they had like on Channel 13 shows like Jacques Pepin, cooking, Julia Child, Yan Can Cook was another one that I used to love. That guy had a super crazy personality. And then Food Network came out, and you had your people like Emeril Lagasse, Malta Mario, Bobby Flay, who they just announced is actually quitting Food Network for the first time in since the beginning. He was one of the OGs in the Food Network, and that's when I started to learn about a lot of ingredients. And at the time, there was a thing called, it wasn't Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous, but it was a show where they would take you into like a really, really fine dining kitchen, and they would show you the inner workings of that kitchen and how things worked. And that to me was something that was seriously uh, it was enticing. It was something that I really wanted to learn more about. We have somebody jumping in the chat here, the Surly Gamer. Justin Wilson on PBS got me into cooking. That's interesting. I actually, that's not a name I'm familiar with, but after the stream, I'll have to look that up. I used to watch a lot of things on PBS in regards to cooking. I used to also watch things like This Old House. For some reason, I used to love that creative thing, even though I wasn't really a hands-on person with the do-it-yourself home type of stuff. So now we're into middle school, and I remember in middle school kind of really trying to figure out, you know, what my parents cook here is good and everything, but like what is my food identity? And I'm sure it wasn't as conscious as I'm fleshing it out to be right now. But I remember also, as we went from middle school to high school, uh, being less about the creativity of the food and more about the volume. And one thing I can remember, and I know one of my buddies from high school, Greg, who might be in the chat tonight, or he might be watching this later. I know he comments on everything a lot. He used to work at McDonald's, and he used to hook me up. I'd go to McDonald's, get a meal, and he'd give me one bag that had my fries, but under the fries, he'd give me like 8 hamburgers, and I don't know how he got away with it, or if he got away with it, but it was one of those things where you're a growing kid, and at the time I was active, we were doing karate, playing outside. That was kind of before I got into the whole video game thing, even though I was always kind of a inside kid, I would say. We played outside a lot. Now there was a point that I wanted to go back to real quick, and it just escaped me. And we're live here. I'm going off of bullet points, not really anything rehearsed. So the whole idea is this is supposed to be laid back, and you get to know me a little bit. While in the live chat, you guys can comment if there's anything you relate with or not. And I'm trying to think of what that point was, but maybe I'll get back to it after. So we're working in the deli, and we're in high school by that point. Oh, supermarkets. So when we moved upstate, it was a lot more difficult to get like good Italian bread. And I remember when we moved upstate, going to ShopRite for the first time, and it's not like it is now. ShopRite, even up here, is like you can get probably anything that you could get in any Italian deli. That's why I think the Italian deli model in this day and age, anywhere where you have a supermarket, is probably null and void. There's not a lot of Italian delis, even in my area here. There's a couple, but they've been in business forever. But I remember the bread that we got, and I really liked the bread. It's that bread that they bake in those sheets that has those little holes, like they're like, I don't know, like little ridges that are holes. And I remember getting the boiled ham and putting it on the bread, and I remember liking it. I remember my dad just completely, like, he couldn't stand it. And that was kind of a fun memory from that time, that it went to show the fact that there was definitely a change happening in terms of, what we had access to, even though shortly after that, my dad opened a deli. And then also things like, what we could find. So going through high school, it was weird because by that point, Food Network had become a phenomenon, and my brother laments this, but like I used to watch Emerald Live every night, 8 o'clock. I was locked into Emerald Live. The only night that I didn't watch Emerald Live at 8 o'clock was Monday nights, and that's because that was the time of the Monday Night Wars and professional wrestling, WCW, WWE, then WWF. Even during Emerald Live, we used to do this thing, and Dom, you're definitely remember this, the really hard breadsticks with the sesame seeds, and like stuff like Country Crock. You remember eating that stuff? And we would sit there and eat this margarine, which in the 90s, like that stuff, it's amazing. If you go to the supermarket, that is such a small subset now of the supermarket butter aisle, and real butter has kind of taken over. But like that Country Crock with those breadsticks, that was amazing stuff. So that was kind of the Emerald Live thing, and we got Dom kind of Emerald Live was repetitive, and I agree. And I've been rewatching it on YouTube TV. There's a channel that actually has all the episodes of Emerald Live, and you can watch them in their entirety. And it's repetitive, but at the end of the day, it's like anything. You know, you connect with a creator or any kind of content, and you consume that. And yeah, we would literally take the breadsticks and dip them in the tub. It was gross, but it was an incredible time. And I think most of my memories with food actually come from around that time, because I remember also this is the Greg Eckert McDonald's days when the Arch Deluxe came out at McDonald's, and I remember going absolutely crazy over that. That we, McDonald's forever had the Big Mac and they had their quarter pounders with cheese, but then they came out with this. They called it like a gourmet sandwich, and they marketed it toward adults. It had circle bacon. It had like a garlic mayonnaise, black pepper on it, and it had a special bun that was totally different than everything else. And that was a time where Monopoly also came out around the time. The Mac Millions. um, and that was kind of a time I really remember. I remember the point that I wanted to get back to, because we were doing karate in the mid-ish 90s. Uh, our karate teacher owned two sushi restaurants, like hibachi sushi restaurants. It was before those became ubiquitous as well. Nowadays, you drive any direction 5 minutes around here, and there's a hibachi restaurant that also serves sushi, or a Chinese restaurant that also serves sushi. But back then, you really had to seek it out. And in Middletown, New York, there was only one sushi restaurant called Hana Restaurant, and it was owned by our karate teacher. He also had a location in Monticello, New York. And it was weird, because my dad my parents weren't exactly adventurous eaters, but I think because of the fact that we knew the owner, I think it was one of those things where, you know, there was kind of like a support ring going around, where they would come in if they needed stuff in our store. We would go eat there, and kind of supporting local businesses in that kind of way. And I didn't get into sushi at that time. I remember being pretty against the whole idea of raw fish. And that this was an important point that I definitely wanted to talk about, because when we get to the college days, that kind of whole flips all around. But I really loved like the chicken teriyaki. Like I can remember exactly how it used to come out. And I remember ordering one time like bulgogi, which is a Korean dish. And our karate teacher was actually Korean. It was a Korean slash Japanese restaurant. And it was just amazing. But also, kind of going with the Asian kind of theme, Middletown became like this hub for Chinese buffets. And I used to love Chinese food. Although, like, when I say I used to love Chinese food, I never got into anything that had a vegetable in it when I was a young kid. Uh, didn't really didn't really get to know vegetables very well, and this is a point we have to get back to later, because it's important for you to understand how the content on the channel kind of took shape. But my go-to order at Chinese restaurants, I mean, even now it kind of is too, was boneless spare ribs, white rice, and fried dumplings. I actually had that just the other night. So when these Chinese buffets came out, there was one in Caldor Plaza in Middletown that I was just asking my brother about a couple days ago, and it was literally called China Buffet, and it was epic. Like I remember exactly how that place was laid out, and I remember, we used to go with neighbors who they knew how to work the system. The guy would go up for a couple rounds, sit there, read a paper, and go back up. It was kind of fun. But then they opened up another Chinese buffet not even a mile away from there. So now we had this kind of Chinese buffet, and that was almost across the street from Hana Restaurant. And it was just an amazing kind of time with that. And that's when we kind of get to the college days, and that's where a little bit more of my experimentation kind of came from. When I came to the capital region, you know, there was a lot that I had never seen that I got access to in college. The first thing being people who were 100% vegetarian and even vegan that didn't really have any way to at the time veganism was not something that was catered to as much as it is now. I remember at the dining hall at Siena College, and my friend Brian G is in the chat here. There was a different Brian G who was actually one of the vegans at the time, but they in order to be inclusive for people who were vegan, they actually had a special refrigerator and they had a budget set, and they would let the students who were vegan actually go shopping and stock that refrigerator as part of the dining program, which I thought was pretty cool at the time. But it was one of those things where like I was like, what is going on with this vegan food? And I remember going to Hannaford. Hannaford is one of the supermarkets here, and I got one of the cereals that they had, and it was called Kashi. It was before Kashi became kind of a multi cereal thing, but they were these little squares with like chocolate inside of it. It wasn't chocolate, it was carob. And I remember eating it. And I'm like, this is awesome. Like, I don't know. I was a big Cocoa Puffs and Cocoa Pebbles kid, but I really did like the Kashi cereal. And it kind of opened my eyes up to the fact that, you know, there's other stuff out there, even to the point where buffalo wings were a thing in the 90s, but they weren't. I don't remember them being as big as they became in like the later 90s and 2000s. And even now, we used to get them in Middletown at a place called On the Run in the mall. But when I came up here, that there was like a restaurant actually dedicated um to buffalo wings, and it was the restaurant that we visited when I had college orientation right down the road. It was called Scoobers, and I just ate there the other night as well. But I remember going to this place, Scoobers, and not only did they have buffalo wings, but they had something that was mozzarella sticks with raspberry sauce. And I remember trying it, and I remember being like, this is the most amazing thing I've ever had. I have been dipping my mozzarella sticks in red tomato sauce my entire life, never seen the fact that you could dip it in a raspberry sauce. And this is amazing. And it was kind of around that time that I think all the restaurants around here started picking up on it's called mozzarella with Melba. There's a recipe on the channel if you haven't already seen that, just because I had to make something here for content that expose that for anybody from outside of the area who doesn't know that you could eat that. But that was kind of another thing. And then the other thing that was very different here in Middletown, we had a lot of, and we have Brian G in the chat. Scoobers is definitely life changing, and that's a fact. If you've never been to Scoobers, it's an experience. Not only are the wings incredible and the mozzarella with raspberry, I've gotten to know the owners over the years, and speaking even with Bernice, every time I go there, she is a character. She's independent, business owner, and we very much speak the same language because my dad kind of similar backgrounds. But in Middletown we had Mexican restaurants, and there was a pretty high density of Mexican population in Middletown. When I came up here, the Mexican food was very different, but it was very, very good. So in college I started learning about things like, what was the name of the place? It was called Garcia's, which was like the like crispy tacos that had red green shells. It was as campy Mexican food as you can get. Not high quality, but at the end of the day, also like very crowd pleasing. Then we had places like Pancho's. There's a place called Bombers, which is more burritos, and it's one of those things that I think at the time, I think it was ahead of its time. It had kind of a California vibe where you had like this downstairs and had a lot of characters. I remember being like completely floored by the fact that behind the counter they had He-Man figures standing there like on top of the tip jar for you to tip. And the food is not great by any means, but it's the type of thing that you're going to remember. Something like barbecue tofu burrito or jerk chicken burrito or something like that. because you think burrito and you think Mexican food. So, that's another thing I'm kind of exploring in college. You see this place Bombers, and that was kind of on Lark Street in downtown Albany. Is Lark Street considered downtown Albany? I'm not sure. Got a little coffee, get me a little more wired for the night. And if you're enjoying this, hit a thumbs up. I know I'm kind of rambling a little bit, but I think this is going to kind of get to my point. So, also in this area, I started to explore things like sushi. There was a place called Ginza that I remember going to all the time. That the sushi, like each roll was like $4.50, which from in Middletown, sushi wasn't $4.50 a roll. It was more like $14.50 a roll at the time, because they knew that they could charge in that area, and it was people would be paying for it because they didn't have access to it. But Ginza, I got to try a lot of different things: Boston roll, Philadelphia roll, uh, New York roll, all this different stuff. And I was kind of mad when they knocked down Ginza to make Krispy Kreme donuts. And it is what it is. But about a decade later, Ginza popped up again, and I kind of digress a little bit. So that was Ginza. Just other stuff, just experimenting out in college. But the one thing that is a constant is that things like fast food and restaurant food was never something that I scoffed about. And I never will. And I said this at the start of the stream here. I'm never going to judge anybody for what they like or dislike. Okay. It's not in me, because it kind of, that individuality that comes with your experiences. If you like Olive Garden, I don't think anybody should argue with you over that. And there's a very specific reason why. And that's because that food is engineered to be liked. So it's just like when you hear a song on the radio and it's a pop song and you like a pop song, that song is engineered to be liked. So people who are like, "Oh my God, Olive Garden's terrible. It's a chain and this and that." Fine. That's your opinion. That's fine. I like to support the local Italian restaurants too. Do I, do I love Olive Garden? Absolutely. I can tell you there was actually an incident in the mid 2000s when I literally uh ate myself to the point where I could not move. Okay? And we'll go into that. So, I had the appetizer sampler. I was drinking these things called Italian sodas, which were Sprite mixed in with these sugary syrups. Salad and breadsticks. You got to go with the salad and breadsticks. Then I had the tour of Italy, which is lasagna, chicken parm, and something else. And they're basically 3 entrees on a plate. And I had the audacity to have dessert at the end of it. And that was we tipped a little extra that night because I was sitting there. But yeah, I don't think it's fair to judge people based on that. And I don't think anybody's in a position to do that anyway, because what makes you better than anybody else? And what makes me better than anybody else? Why would I judge? If I were to judge you for your preferences, it literally uh it's me literally making a stand that people don't deserve to be individual. And that to me is not right. So anyway, that's college. And then graduate school, kind of exploring food, got a little bit more. I at that time, it was my first job out of college. And even though I was making either 18,000 or $20,000 a year, it was a small amount for a teaching assistant in graduate school. It was enough to kind of start experimenting with the places in town. An epic restaurant in Troy called Plum Blossom was a place we used to eat at all the time. To my point about the chains, even during this time, we would go to Friendlies every Friday night. And I remember, the 3 scoop versus 5 scoop Sunday at the end of the meal. My thing was always the chicken finger basket with honey mustard. Always bring extra honey mustard. Don't even bother with the coleslaw, as long as you bring me enough honey mustard. Well, I probably even remember the woman's name that was the waitress at there. And then we found out actually one of the guys that was a server at at that Friendlies was a high school mate of Brian G. I actually have that picture. I have to send it to you, Brian, because I want to see if you remember that kid. So yeah, graduate school was also interesting, and at that time, I started experimenting with things like Indian food and Jamaican food. There was a Jamaican restaurant right across from the place where we would pick up comics. I actually just reviewed it for the channel a couple months ago, and I got to learn that I like spicy stuff. That's one of those things I never explored spicy foods. And if you've watched the channel for more than her name was not Flo Dom. It definitely wasn't Flo. It was like Deb or something like that. Flo, I guess is close. Flo and Deb are like the same thing. But I got to learn I like spicy food, and that kind of evolved into eating spicy stuff for challenges here for the channel. So that is what it is. Toward the end of that, after graduate school, I actually don't remember a whole lot about experimenting outside of things. I remember eating a lot of Pizza Hut. I remember gaining a lot of weight because of that. I remember a lot of gatherings. We I would do my definitely want to hit the WrestleMania parties. So with my brother Dom, we would have our yearly WrestleMania party, order things like pizza, wings, crazy stuff. Uh WrestleMania always coincides with Easter, so we would go raid Target for all the Easter candy. And you can see we're like nothing here is gourmet. We're not going to, the finest deli that we could find and getting like we're getting the junk that you get anywhere, and it just is what it is. But around that time, after graduate school, I remember a lot of Pizza Hut. What else? I don't really remember too much going on other than what we were already actually eating. Things like red front pizza, I remember being a big thing that we would get a lot. The New Year's parties that I would do where I would literally go to like Sam's Club and get like, you know, things to make Swedish meatballs and lots of pizza doughs and we just keep making stuff all night. I used to make this amazing iced latte. Uh I probably have to do this for the channel where I would do espresso with Irish cream, and it was the most amazing thing just to stay up for the you know for Dick dropping his balls. So that was those parties, and a lot changed for me when I got to know Cassie, and that this is around 2009 time, and that kind of also takes us into what I call the derryx blog era. So it turns out that Cassie took me to the first place that I technically reviewed for the blog, which was Ilium Cafe in uh, Troy, New York. And it's funny because I think we ended up going there either the week that they opened or even the day that they opened. And I remember going there and being like, they have an Italian antipasto sushi roll, so I got to try that. And then it was a roast beef sandwich that had some crazy toppings, but things that like you can't get at like a Cisco or a food service thing. And I remember it being notable because it was so unique. But it was around that time that social media was really taking off. Everybody had a blog at that time. And I remember there was like a ring of people that we would kind of comment on each other's blogs and things. And I would start to notice that, even the Times Union used to have, people blogging about food, and I would comment on those things. And you start to see the same people in this stuff. And that kind of prompted me to say, all right, look, I have this background from Italian immigrants and food. Dad owned a deli. I worked in the deli, got to experiment with a lot of stuff in this area, kind of hit a lot of the foodie type things here. Um, there's a lot of blogs out there that are spreading kind of not correct information, and might as well look into starting my own blog. So it never was a goal for me to be attached to something like the Times Union. I know a lot of people around 2010 were looking to get their blog on featured on Times Union, um, and not judging. I mean you know, there you get tremendous reach at the time. You can get tremendous reach doing that. But I always thought for me it was something that was independent. But through the years, I think I got to know a lot of the people in those circles, got to respect those people that they respected me back. People link to you and stuff, and it grew. And over the years, we ended up going to a lot of different places. I think I have something like 300 reviews, which is crazy between 2000 and 10 and 2017. So that's kind of a little bit ridiculous. But it also never to me did I want it to be a I never wanted it to be local. And that's kind of part of the allure here to me for YouTube, and we'll get to that as well. We got somebody in the chat, Benny Ice Life. When Chick-fil-A comes to Latham, it's going to be a huge building. I really hope that we get a Chick-fil-A here so I don't have to drive 2.5 hours to actually eat that chicken sandwich. Anyway, but there are plans for me to figure out a way to get out there and do that. But yeah, I hope it does come to Latham. So we're in the blog days, and we for my birthday one year, Cassie took me to Butter Restaurant in New York City. We met Alex Cornicelli. She got to talk to me about how Prince used to eat in her restaurant, which was one of the most amazing stories. But the most amazing thing about meeting Alex Cornicelli was we barely talked about food. We talked about The Sopranos and she actually did dedicate a little bit of time to us. We have a picture with her. I'm not doing any overlays tonight. I figure this should be just a little bit of free form. But if you type in derryx Alex Cornicelli, the picture's all over the internet. I say all over like my face is all over the internet. It's easy to find on Google. All right. So my brother is telling me I missed how I retired from Warheads. All right. In 6th grade, I used to, the people in school weren't eating like they would bring Warheads and be like, oh my God, these are the spiciest things. And it was before they kind of tamed them down a little bit. But I was the only one who actually like back to back kept eating them. And like it literally wrecked my tongue. So I basically just started telling people I retired from Warheads. Whatever. It's a funny story. All right, so we're in the derryx blog era. The one thing that was happening concurrent with that, and this is something that I have to work on myself right now. Um, Around 2011, I started also trying to lose a little bit of weight. My weight had creeped up quite a bit in 2010, in 2008, 2009, 2010. My weight crept up. So 2011, I started trying to lose weight. I still made time for a weekly review. I think we're going to have to start doing that here for the channel as well. But it kind of all culminated a little bit in around like the 2013 time, around when we got married. I started doing yoga, and it wasn't just any yoga. It was professional wrestler Diamond Dallas Page's DDP yoga. And that kind of changed my perspective on food a little bit. At the time, it kind of made me a little more restrictive, and it really made me appreciate a lot of the things that were going on. Now, most of my eating habits kind of have reverted to everything before that time. But the one important thing about the DDP yoga time is that it was also around the time where local farms were a thing. And it really got me to appreciate that the quality of the ingredients it is a major thing in the enjoyment of the food. And that's something that like even now, I'm not going to snob out if I want chicken parm, just every day. I call it like an everyday chicken parm. I can go to the store, get the 4C breadcrumbs, get a jar of even something like ragu or Francesco Rinaldi or whatever sauce they make now, and make that. Or if I really want, get some San Marzano tomatoes and make a nice fresh tomato sauce. It's one of those things where now I can tailor it to whatever the event is. Or if I want a flaming hot chicken parm, I can spend hours to develop that recipe and then have nobody watch it. I'm not bitter or anything, but that's kind of the thing. But yeah, that was kind of what I had learned to appreciate during the DDP yoga time. And That kind of got me thinking a little bit about making videos. If you dig back through the channel far enough, you will find cooking videos that I made at that time that were less edited, less produced. They were from one angle that you really couldn't see what was going on, but you can kind of see the influence there and kind of how things evolved into what I'm making now for the channel. And that kind of brings me to the YouTube channel and the present day and how that's molded my food identity. And now we will take a sip and get a little bit, we'll wet the whistle a little bit. Try to use as awkward euphemism as possible. I just met Miles last week. Miles, let's go, bro. Let's do it. All right. So we are talking now about the YouTube channel, the present day. How did my food identity evolve? The video that we're the most popular for here on the channel is how to cook kale that will melt in your mouth. It's my number one commented on video. It's the number one video that brings in subscribers. It is my number one viewed video every day. It pulls in about 150 views a day. You might not think that that's a lot, but if you think about the fact that that video was posted over a year ago out of spite because a video that I made concurrent with that wasn't getting views, it's actually quite remarkable. And it's important that we talk about that video and also a lot of the content that it centers around that video, because that video is number one. Number two is how to cook peas, where I basically just slightly modified a recipe on the back of a Trader Joe's bag of peas. So that video pulls in about 50 views a day and a lot of subscribers. A Starbucks copycat recipe is pulling in a lot of views, and you can start to see how this is very different than a lot of what we talked about so far. So how did we get to the point where I'm making videos about vegetables for my YouTube channel and getting a lot of views on that? I think that's important because now, being 42 and, not really knowing what's in the future, I get to experiment with that stuff for content, but also my day to day gets to evolve. It gets to pull in all of my experiences up until now into something. And I think, from the time doing DDP yoga and cooking a lot of vegetables, one of the things that I hated at the time was, you got to eat these big bowls of greens and you figure out ways to kind of get those greens down. When you cook a handful of kale, it becomes like that much. So it's kind of a no-brainer that you eat things like kale and stuff. Okay, so how do you make kale good? And it's actually a lot simpler than it seems. So that's why you'll see recipes like that. You'll see recipes like the peas. And then you'll also see recipes like the mozzarella sticks with the Melba that we did a couple months ago. I've pumped the brakes a little bit on the recipes, and there's a couple of reasons for that. The main one being they take a lot of time to edit, and they take a lot of time to put together and develop. But also I'm trying to up the production game on the edited videos. So I'm trying to figure out what the right thing is. But I think the next recipe video is going to be copycat Starbucks pumpkin syrup. I feel like I might be a little late to that party, but the cool thing about YouTube is that even if it's late now, next year it'll have a revitalized life. And that is what it is. So there's that. And the other thing is things like restaurant reviews for the channel and things like the chicken sandwich wars. And these things there's a couple of reasons why I want to do that type of stuff. The local reviews, I'm not going to pretend that I have any influence that's going to, draw businesses, that's going to, increase business to these places. But the least I could do is create an awareness. And the least I can do is tell you what I like about an experience, what you might or might not like about an experience. Like I said, I'm never going to judge anybody for what their preferences are. But, I feel like those reviews are something that I can make really well. and the chicken sandwich wars is a extension of that. I let's see here. The chicken sandwich wars has been a lot of fun because they're shorter to put together, so it takes less time. They are they're super formulaic. So like when you come and click into one of those, you know exactly what you're going to get, and it's 5 minutes, 6 minutes tops. I don't want to make any longer than 6 minutes, even though I think the Popeyes one is going to have to be. But by then, you guys are going to be worked up to it. But the cool thing about the chicken sandwich thing is that it's a method of expression for me because I don't like chicken sandwiches that much. Like I don't want to be known to be the chicken sandwich guy, but at the end of the day, I feel like a lot of people have these curiosities about it, and I think through my perspective and my background, it might be something that I can add a unique voice to. So that's that. What else we got? So yeah, it's funny how the content evolved toward food, but food has always been at the core something that has been of interest to me. And all those memories going back to when I was a child are the types of things that you kind of build and you make this what I call food identity. And the cool thing about it is there's very few people, like even me and my brother, the way that we eat, and my brother is the guy here who um, didn't like the fact that I didn't mention that that I retired from Warheads. But he and I would say were brought up very similar, but we have very different preferences and very different what I would say food identities. My brother lives in New York City, and he has access to the most amazing pizza. There is a pizzeria that is literally based on um, their specialty is the stacked slice that John Travolta eats in in Saturday Night Fever, and he refuses to go to it. Uh, and I will judge him for that because that is an amazing thing that I want to go to. And we now he's obviously getting defensive because I said that, but we got to get the if we can get let's do this. Let's go into Dom's Twitch stream tomorrow night and let's try to get him uh to go to this restaurant to eat the stacked slice. Just go in the comments and tell him he's got to go to that restaurant. I don't even know the name of the restaurant right now, and I want to see him go to it. But yeah, but the point I'm trying to make is we have our different preferences, and even though we have the same background, we're just different. And I think that's what makes us unique, and that's what's fun about everything. So that I will end the rant there, but I do want to talk about what the content that's coming to the channel because I have some amazing stuff that all right, let's prove him wrong. He's saying that you guys won't watch him on Twitch tomorrow night at 8:00. Prove him wrong. Go to that Twitch. I'll leave a link in the description down below to his Twitch channel. Boom. All right, so content coming to the channel tomorrow night. It is our yearly visit to Indian Ladder Farms. We had an amazing time. I even brought a bag of Oreos there to see if apple cider donut Oreos recreates the apple orchard experience in upstate New York. You don't want to miss that one. It is an incredible video. After that, we got another chicken sandwich coming, guys. Every week we got chicken sandwiches. So next week is KFC. That is Monday night KFC. I gotta see if I gotta see if people will I gotta get a graphic designer to make me like the Monday Night Chicken Wars, like just like the Monday Night Wrestling Wars, like banner. That would be funny. I do have to clarify my brother Dom's Twitch. If you couldn't tell from his profile picture, nothing to do with food. It's about him playing guitar. If you're a creative person and you like to watch that process, I think you're going to enjoy it. Enough about him. I mean, I don't know. Why did you make this about you? After that, we got a live stream next week. I'm going to tell you right now the topic. What are the worst Halloween trick-or-treat candies? That is next week's topic. I want to bring in guests. I want people. I might even I might even tweet out the link to actually come into the stream to make this as public as possible. I want to hear what people say when they say that the word that what their worst Halloween candy is. I am saying categorically, and I'll tell you right now, it is Tootsie Rolls. To me, there is no worse trick or treat given Halloween candy than Tootsie Rolls, but maybe somebody has something crazier out there. And then after that, we have, trying to think, another vacation dining review. And then after that, another chicken sandwich. And I will tell you, I have recorded this one already. I recorded it while I was at this People of Video conference here in Albany. It is the chicken sandwich at Mr. Beast Burger. So we know Mr. Beast can pull millions of views on videos, has millions of subscribers, but can the guy make a chicken sandwich? And that was an interesting one. So we are going to get to that. What's insane? All right. And with that, guys, I want to thank everybody. We're just at the hour here. And if you were in the first 5 minutes for the early crew, thanks a lot for joining. If you were here for any of this, thanks so much for joining. If you haven't hit that thumbs up, please do so. If there was anything here that you missed, feel free to come back and watch it in the replay. And I'm going to leave some stuff on the screen that if you do watch in the replay, there are videos that I'd like you to watch because I think you will enjoy them. Thanks a lot. And we will see you next week. Worst Halloween trick-or-treat candies of all time. See you then.